Hey, it's me. I hope you had a good sleep. I hope you're drinking plenty of water. Have you ever wondered how long it takes to learn a new language and make a game? Or what it looks like to learn a language without any tutorials? Well, I realize I've been messing with Godot for nearly a year and I've only used C Sharp, not its native GDScript. And I'd like to learn GDScript. It might be better for certain types of games, it might learn some things in the process, and it will probably make me a better programmer. Also, I hadn't finished anything in Godot yet, so I thought it'd be cool just to make a small project and release it. So I decided to give myself a little challenge. I'll make a game while learning GDScript start to finish with a minimal amount of polish. I'll record it, release it, talk about my experience, and maybe that will be kind of interesting. So in the interest of science, I have decided to make
generic falling block game.
So here's my rules. I'm going to finish making a fun, simple,
generic falling block game.
It's a simple game. It's got a really well-defined design. This is a programming / production challenge, not a design challenge. I'm not going to redesign it. And I can make
generic falling block game
from memory. I'm going to record everything I do on the computer at least. I can look stuff up in documentation usually, or in search or whatever, but I'll record all of that. There won't be any offline research. I won't do any tutorials. If a solution does come to me in a dream, I can use that. The mind is a powerful and mysterious tool. And I'll try to let you know. I'll do everything I can myself. I'm not going to do any vibe coding, no templates, no plugins. I'll make my own art because I can, at least for this, and I'll probably download some sound effects and music because I don't really have the patience or setup to do that right now. Everything will be done in code mostly. That's just a matter of personal preference for me. I don't really like using visual editors or drag and drop. I do use them for the UI though. And I won't do anything in in-engine physics because we don't need them. They cause bugs. A lot of new programmers get stuck on trying to make physics work, and you don't need them. Our own math is simpler. I don't want to handle move and slide because move and slide is weird. We only need 2 physics interactions really. That is to say, thing falls down a bit and thing goes side to side and can't collide with other things. And that can be handled way easier just using math and data. A little disclaimer. I am not you. You are not me. We are all starting from somewhere, and here's where I'm coming from. I've been programming for a decade or so. I have adequate Python familiarity. I mean, I've used it professionally, though it's not really my first go-to language, Python being very close in syntax to GDScript. I have been using Godot with C Sharp for about a year, so I know the editor and API docs pretty well. And I work as a software developer, though not in games. This is just my hobby. Your mileage may vary. This may take you much longer to do or much less if you're a real brain genius. So what are you going to get out of this? I want to answer the question, can you learn GDScript and make a whole game in less time than it takes to slow roast a lamb shoulder? For newer programmers, just seeing the breadth and scope of a project like this can help you scope your own projects. When we mess with bigger, open-ended projects, we tend to spin our wheels adding new features and utilities until we get bored or die. We never get to polish, we never get to release. And those are big parts of game development. Making something small and taking it to the finish line, that's often a little better, or a really interesting experience at least, compared to having 3/10 of your magnum opus rotting away in a Git repo. So, of course, you can't just remake
generic falling block game
and release it. Nobody will care or play it except for lawyers. So I do plan to mutate it to something else and release that later. I'll cover the mutation in a future video because I think that's interesting too. But this video will just be about making a pretty close clone of
generic falling block game.
So let's get started. I'll go day by day of what I do and where I get to, and you can see this project take shape. All right. let's get started. Let's start out with a fresh repo and a new Godot project, like always. The main thing I'm going to do today is hook up a menu, which I build here. It's going to have start, high scores, and quit buttons, and I'm going to hook up the quit functionality. I also set up a little event bus where I can store my signals for main game events. I find myself referring to the GDScript docs a lot here because I really don't know how to do this yet, and that's okay. I've seen them before and I kind of get the syntax, so I don't need to look at them all the time, but it is helpful. Anyways, so I get that all done. I've got a quit button, which is maybe the most important feature of all. And here's what it looks like by the end of the day. It took about 40 minutes. All right, it's day 2. It's time to start connecting up some button logic, but first I wrestle with VS Code a bunch. It's giving me weird indentation errors that should be solved automatically, really. I have to struggle a bit with signal syntax. I just have trouble remembering how this is supposed to even go in GDScript, so I have to look up a bunch of examples, and that's all right. But really, VS Code is not doing what it's supposed to do for me, and I am going to, at some point in the next day or two, swap into the in-editor editor, and we'll see how that goes. So the other things I do today, I set up my game state data class. This is where core game data will be stored. One thing it has is a game status enum that tells us if the game is running, paused, not started, or completed. Game state will also contain a grid of 200 tiles. That's 20 by 10. These represent every place tile, not the currently following one. Each one will be an integer representing empty for 0 or a color that I'll map to 1, 2, 3, 4. This will probably actually be a enum for reasons of readability right now. But an enum really is just integers or another value. I'm going to do a little bit of sprite work now. I'm using Asprite, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but we're just going to make a simple kind of light colored sprite that we can modulate. This is truly beautiful work that will be an inspiration to generations to come. So to render these, I'm going to create a little grid renderer class. Its job is to just update to show the current game state to the player, generally what blocks are in place right now. I had a little problem here where I'm getting confused by global imports and the global namespace. Turns out if you are using auto load, it will drop these things into the global namespace, which kind of confuses the global class annotation. Anyways, I do figure this out, and it works just fine. Now we're going to need some sort of grid utility class. I like to use this to translate between positions, indices, and addresses, XY, within the tile grid. This is really handy, and it's really easy to test these functions, so I like to have these here for reuse. I'll also add a tile to color utility here. This is going to interpret between the the enum values and actual colors, so I can modulate each block and it looks nice. We're going to add a process override to our game runner. This is going to update our game state every tick, or every delta, I guess, of time. Our game state is not a node-derived class. I like to keep it its own data class that's just sitting there, and then another class can send updates to it. It'll take in its delta, and it'll use that to keep track of its current internal time, and then we can alter that to do pause and such. We're going to add a unhandled input event override to our game script here, and it can catch any keyboard input events. We only need a few. We only need rotate, left, right, down, and pause right now. So it should be pretty minimal here, and it can just live in the game script. And I'm adding a gravity variable that will control how quickly blocks fall. This needs to be able to change with difficulty, but right now we'll just test it as a constant. A pause function is pretty easy. Now that we have this active time variable within our game state, we just stop updating that and then everything stops moving. That works great. I get frustrated with VS Code again for a while. Then I try the inbuilt editor. This handles GDScript syntax much better, but I do miss some of the refactoring features that VS Code has. It looks like I've got a single tile dropping. That's thrilling stuff. We set up some controls within our project settings, and that's it for today. Here's what it looks like. All right, it's day 3. We have a little guy kind of drifting down. Let's shut up some warnings about integer division. Nice. Basically, we just need to know if any tile in our current shape is just above a tile with a non-zero value or at the bottom. So we're going to work on that here for a bit. That means that the tile has landed, quote unquote. Now we have to convert tiles from an active shape into tiles in our data array. And voila, that's basically the game. So we'll do a little cleanup here. Now we have to make sure we only move active blocks when there's space for them so they can't go off the edge. I think there's a little bug here for later where you can slip a block into other blocks horizontally, but I'll fix that pretty soon. It's sometimes good to leave a bug and come back to it as long as you make a note of it. Let's implement a speed up function so you can press down to make the current tile drop really fast. We're just going to make it a coefficient and we'll multiply gravity by that, and that works just fine. We might want to change that to a constant later. I'm not really sure how this is going to interact with the change in speed as a level gets harder. We're going to add some quick checks to pick up input only when the status is active. We don't want to be able to maneuver the block when you're paused. That would be cheating. The big chunk of work here is rotating shapes. This has to force us to expand our concept of a dropping shape. Basically, it's got to be its own data class now and not a Godot node. It will store a reference to a shape resource. The resource will have stuff shared by all shapes of that class or kind or whatever. So the red horizontal 4 blocks versus the 2x2 block, that kind of thing. It'll contain its color and the offsets of each tile. And the shape itself will refer to that resource as well as that particular shape's current offset and rotation. We can then grab a random shape resource and instantiate a shape with that, and the grid renderer can take care of showing it for us. So a shape is just responsible for returning coordinates of all of its own tiles, which I can do by mapping over the resource tile and adding the offset. And later we'll handle a rotation here. But I hit a big problem. So when you map an array of vector to integers in GDScript, it starts being just a normal array. It drops its typings. So I look around for a solution to this and it's really frustrating, and they want me to create a whole new array in a loop for this. I do find a slightly less annoying way to do this later, but it's a bit of a frustration, and it makes me wish I was working in JavaScript or C# Link. Okay, now we have to remember how rotation math works. I tried cheating it by swapping it to a vector 2 and then back, but this causes a bug. The bug I will fix tomorrow probably, but we'll also end up writing a whole actual rotation matrix for this and not using inbuilt rotation, which is sort of pointless, but I like to know the math that's happening. All right, this is what it looks like for today. All right, it's day 4. We start out with messing around with rotation and getting frustrated. Then we're going to make all the rest of the basic 4-block shapes here. What we really need to do next is check if all columns in a given row are non-zero, and then we can clear it. And we only need to call that whenever a row has changed. We don't have to put that in some sort of process function because we know when a row has changed. It's if we've added a new block to it. It's at this point where I get frustrated with VS Code and I swap back to the internal Godot editor. When we clear a row, what we're really doing is cutting a width amount of tiles out of our tiled data array and then splicing the array back together, and then we can add a new row of zeros on top. So debugging, this turns out to be a bit confusing, so I start playing with Godot's debugging tools, and they work really well. They're really well integrated with the game engine, and I think this is a huge strength of GDScript. I hit that same issue again with typed arrays, and I get frustrated. This is pretty brutal. Debugging will continue until morale improves. Turns out I had an off by 1 error, so it's good to fix that. I make a player class to hold stuff like score, then we whip up a quick score display panel. It's going to be super ugly for now, but I have to look up some type conversion stuff for GDScript. This is nothing too complicated. Okay, having a look at that slide bug where we can slide things under other things, we just need to test the outcome state of the active shape if you make the transformation against the current data class, and that works just fine. We can also test the edges of the world, so we can't push or rotate a shape off of the side of the game space. All right, and I'm going to quickly also hook up an end screen with the classic "Congratulations, you lose" line. We do not need a win screen because we are all losers. All right, that's working fine. We will come back to this. So here's what it looks like now at the end of day 4. All right, welcome to day 5. This is a quick one, but it's a good one. So I mess around here with writing my own rotation matrix for rotation because I thought that might fix the issue. It turns out it doesn't. It's the same problem as before. And then I just try putting some rounding in because what it was doing before was when I convert from a vector 2 back to a vector 2i, it was just truncating and cutting off the decimal, and really we need to round to the nearest one. So when I do that, it just works fine, and rotation is in the bag. I keep my cool like matrix here because I think it's fun to have those rather than using inbuilt functions. I'm fun like that. All right, welcome to day 6. We get back to work for the end screen flow for a bit. To handle loss, we need to detect if we have a tile trying to occupy a spot too high. That shouldn't be a problem. And then we do some more menu plumbing here. We're going to make a high score service that is responsible for storing and updating high scores, which will live in a little JSON file locally. Nothing too complicated here, but I'd look up some syntax for JSON storing GDScript. All right, so now we're storing objects as res, which is wrong, but a good start. Add a little to.json feature that will turn a score into a variant dictionary. Our JSON parser can handle those natively, and then we do that stupid array creating trick again. I find a better way to do this later. And then a little more menu plumbing. We hook up the new high score data, and here's how it looks. It's day 7. I do a little quick work on sorting and limiting scores, so we don't show them all and we show them in order. This is super ugly still, and I will do some work today to make the play area look a little more comprehensible. The tile size is going up from 16 by 16 to 32 by 32. The more pixels, the better, I guess. It does look better, but these colors, man, they burn the eyes. I'm going to make an empty sprite that can show up as a sort of grid background behind everything. We'll just render width by height of them behind the playfield, and it looks pretty good. We'll go as far to say that. Maybe less bad. We want a bit more control of the field too. It should show up in the middle of the screen. I create a little camera script to control this. It requires a little mathing to get it working, but it's just combining the constants we've got so it feels fine. We'll change the background super quick because this light gray is not very nice. Great. Next, we want to do a little preview of whatever the next piece coming is. We'll create a new panel for that, and it will live just below the score. Its job is to listen for an event from the game state about a change to the next piece variable and render those tiles for it. Some messing around is required to get it to render aligned, but nothing crazy. So we actually need a state variable to handle this next piece, and then rather than just randomizing a new piece whenever we need one, we implement a second variable that will store our next piece, and then we get the new piece from our next piece. It's pretty simple. I don't really like giving the UI renderer direct access to game state, but we can't really send complex classes through events. There'd be a better way to do this if I wanted to get more complicated, but I think it's fine. I've ended up creating a little holder service that can provide game state from a global variable. This would be fixed in a bigger game, but I think this is fine. Okay, so back to next piece renderer. We need a way of figuring out each of the tiles in the next shape so we can render it there. We can really just check the offsets in the resource and grab its color from there too. I mess around with a little bit of an offset so it isn't so ugly to see, but we might need to make this dynamic if we ever have really big shapes. This is good enough though. Okay, now we've got to render some ghost indicator for where the current shape is going to drop. Basically, we just find at what Y value the shape will rest at, and then we should generate preview tiles based on all offsets around that. So I draw a drop preview here tile, and we instantiate a bunch of them, and now we're going to make a renderer for this new data. It's messed up, it's really bugged, but I think I can figure it out tomorrow. Okay, it looks like we need to break out of my second loop. That was working fine, and it messes up when you get to a certain distance from the ground, but we can look at that one tomorrow. Here's what it looks like at the end of the day. Okay, it's day 8 now. We're kind of in the home stretch. Let's fix that tile preview bug. I just needed how to change how I was iterating, and now it seems to be fixed. I quickly handle some difficulty ramping here by modifying gravity by a factor based on the amount of time we've been active. We'll have to tweak this later because it's way too hard right now. Now I grab some sound effects and music off of itch.io and I add them all to my project. Then I'll make some simple audio players that can handle playing them. I won't get crazy here. There's going to be 3 sound effects and 3 music tracks, but it makes a huge difference. I'll play them all at the end of this day. I also really hate triggering these directly from game state, but for this scrappy little project, I think that's fine. Then I do some quick work to let us reset the game with a clear render and fresh data. Here's what the game looks and sounds like now. Alright, there's some janitorial work we have to do next here. We can't double add these signals for the sound, and we have to do a little bit of checking to make sure that's happening and that we remove them once they're no longer needed. That's pretty simple though. Then we need to think about polish. So let's talk about juice, quote unquote juice. This means stuff that makes the game feel good. I'm going to focus on 3 tasks, and that's to dissolve a successful completed row into particles when it is removed. I want to add a little bit of tweening sort of, or animation, so that the blocks don't fall just cell by cell, but they fall gradually. And then I am going to add some minor screen shake, which is, I guess, kind of an annoying feature, but it can feel kind of good if you're tasteful about it. So for particle dissolve, I can make a quick particle here that's square shaped and kind of everything floats up. in some direction. It's going to be a one-shot, and I try to add a color within the shader here, but that's really hard to customize at runtime compared to just making it white and modulating it, which I'll do eventually, because I want the particles to be the same color as the destroyed tile. We just need to specify a row for these, and then we're going to summon them with a little signal. So these are mostly working. We need to adjust the color to white and let modulate do its magic. Okay, it's day 9. This is the last day I worked on this fully, so we really do finish everything right now. In theory, the tweening behavior I was talking about before of having the blocks fall down by pixel rather than by tile should be purely visual, and it shouldn't be too hard. But I was a bit nervous because I thought it would turn out complicated. It turns out I was wrong. It is dead easy. I didn't have to use a tween. I just grabbed the percentage of in-between time and offset our Y by that. Works almost perfectly. I just had to check if a piece was grounded first, so it doesn't try to go under that piece until it realizes that it's done moving. For screen shake, we will actually use a tween. I just add a script to the camera, toss some wild numbers on it, and try it out. Tweens are sequential by default, so I can just throw some random stuff here and it will just work fine. And this actually feels pretty cool. I like it, actually, so hooray. One other janitorial order of business here is I've forgotten to queue free my particles after they're done, meaning that they'll just sit in the tree and take up space eternally and probably make us run out of memory. So Godot actually makes this very easy. We can just connect the particles finish signal and to a queue free. These particles are a bit dull now, I realize. I'm going to add the turbulence attribute here and give it some top right movement, so it kind of gives it a smoky effect and feels like it's going towards the score. I do a little bit of UI work on the score here so that it will pick up the user's name also. Time to pick a font. I want a monospace font just so the scores look nice and line up, kind of like an old arcade game. I just find one online and use it. So it's time to make a color scheme that is less eye-bleedingly awful. I head over to Coolers and click on random for a few minutes until something sparks joy. Now color can just be a simple array. I don't need a weird switch statement. I can just grab something from the array. Oops, I accidentally set one of my shape's colors to 0, which means empty, so it was just disappearing when it settled. It took me 5 minutes to figure out why this was. This is looking way better though. I'm quite happy with it. The background is still kind of dead space. I'm just going to throw another particle effect on it to give it a bit of a ethereal sort of look. Very nice. Am I getting better at this game, or is it just me? Damn. So that looks a lot better. I think we're almost done. I let my wife playtest, and she said that it's weird that you have to tap like every time you want to discreetly move the piece horizontally. So I implement something that will let you just hold it down and it'll move the piece. And that's pretty much it. I feel like this is a full-featured game with a little bit of polish at least, and it looks all right. Do we have a menu? Yes. Do we have high scores? Yes. Can we play the game? Yeah. Is it hard? Not as hard anymore. I'll have to adjust the difficulty again. We've got this cool row clear, we've got screen shake. The pieces move a little bit more smoothly thanks to my wife's feedback. Look at that. The background has a nice little change. We can put in our name. This won't save high scores because we were bad, but that's it, and we can quit. All right, let me reflect on my experience a little for you. So it was a cool experience. I think a lot of new game developers get hung up on making something new and big and epic because they like to play games that are new and big and epic. A lot of people, especially people with the mindset of game developers, are not playing old, simple arcade games. But these people don't finish anything often. When you make a small game over the course of a week or two, that's something you can finish. copying a game design is nice because you can really focus on the production and development side of things. I wouldn't obviously recommend releasing a copycat like this, but I plan to use it as the base of a future project that I can release. And I imagine it will take me another week or two to build something onto that makes it unique enough that maybe someone will want to play it. It took me about 12 hours and change to do all of this, and the whole project is about 3,500 lines of GDScript, I think. So that's pretty quick. I'm a pretty quick coder. I'd probably be a little quicker if I knew GDScript when I started, but regarding GDScript, I'm really surprised pleasantly on how nice it was to write once you got into the rhythm of it. It's got better engine integration, mostly, though a lot of the kind of fetching nodes with the $ syntax I found not that useful because of how weird UI nodes are, and you have to like go through different layout nodes to get anything. So I'd use export for that anyways. For a small project, the global autoloads are a great way to just throw singletons in there that you can grab, though I'd worry on a larger project about it polluting the global namespace and making things confusing. Managing big collections, doing our maps and our filters is a bit of a hassle. I really got stuck on this issue of arrays, once you map them, losing their typing. I did get some advice on Reddit that I'll put up here that is a at least cleaner way to do this. So if you're having trouble, that might be what you want to go to. There's some talk in the community about how C# is more performant than GDScript. This is not that important for small projects where you're not dealing with a ton of data and a ton of other like processor stuff. It's totally fine for this, and often in industry, in game development and other software development, getting it done is better than very marginal performance gains. So what's next? I do think I'm going to continue with this and make a big enough twist on it that it's going to be something I can release. So look for that coming up. I'll do the same thing where I record it. I'll talk a bit about design process in that one because we are going to be doing some design work, and we'll see how far we can get. Okay, thanks a lot, and I'll see you soon.